This is Gregory Mikell, your host and moderator for Being Social, the live on-air broadcast, not limited to radio waves, but accessible to millions of users around the globe via the internet or phone, where all that you need is a voice, a concern, and a longing to be heard for social causes. Join us this evening, August 18th at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time here in the States for Episode 9 of Being Social, as we explore the topic of the value of arts in America. We'll explore the state of America's arts funding in today's economy and its revival. We'll take a look at why U.S. arts are one of the first things to be cut when the budget needs balancing, the economic impact that the arts sectors contribute to the U.S. economy, and of course the intrinsic value of arts to society, as well as the organizations that support American arts. If these and other topics are important to you, do join us on air by phoning in now at 562-645-3551 during tonight's show, where I'll be standing by to engage with you on air. Join our Google Hangout and share your input with foreign participants during our broadcast by searching for Podcast Being Social at Google+, as well as RSVPing at eventbrite.com, where there are weekly tickets available for free. Let's take a look at recent cuts. As recent as 2 weeks ago, the U.S. House Appropriations Committee began considering of legislation that would devastate the National Endowment for the Arts, or NEA, with a 49% cut to its budget. An amendment to restore the funding to the NEA was defeated along a party line vote of 19 to 27. Although arts funding is not the only area of cuts being considered due to economic pressures, it is a repetitive theme in U.S. government. Now, the fight for the arts. To continue the fight, recent attempts to significantly reduce NEA funding cuts, arts advocates have sent more than 22,000 messages to Capitol Hill this past 2 weeks calling for a rejection of these cuts. First, let's take a look at some of the organizations that are known for supporting the arts. The National Endowment for the Arts, or NEA, is an independent agency of the U.S. federal government that offers support and funding for projects exhibiting artistic excellence, both new and established, bringing the arts to all Americans and providing leadership in arts education. It was created by an act of the U.S. Congress in 1965. Welcome to the broadcast. Between 1965 and 2008, the agency has made in excess of over 128,000 grants totaling more than $4 billion. From the mid-1980s to the 90s, Congress granted the NEA an annual funding of between $160 and $100 million. Now, since 1996, Congress cut the NEA funding to $99.5 million as a result of pressure from conservative groups, including the American Family Association, who criticized the agency for using tax dollars to fund highly controversial artists such as Barbara DeGenevieve, Andre Serrano, and Robert Mapplethorpe, and the performance artist known as the NEA-4. Since 1996, the NEA has partially rebounded with a 2004 budget of $121 million. For fiscal year 2010, the budget reached the level it was at during the 90s at $167.5 million, but fell again in fiscal year 2011 with a budget of $154 million. Now, the NEA is governed by a chairman appointed by the president to a 4-year term and confirmed by Congress. The National Council on the Arts advises the chairman on policies and programs, as well as reviewing grant appropriations, applications, funding guidelines, and leadership initiative. Now, the NEA has partnerships in the areas of state and regional, federal, international activities, and design. The state art agencies and regional arts organizations are the NEA's primary partners in serving the American people through the arts. In fact, 40% of all NEA funding goes to state art agencies and regional arts organizations. Now, Ronald Reagan intended to push Congress to abolish the NEA completely over a 3-year period upon entering the office in 1981. However, this plan was abandoned when the President's Special Task Force on the Arts and the Humanities, which included close Reagan allies such as conservatives Charlton Heston and Joseph Coors, discovered the needs involved and the benefits of past assistance, concluding that continued federal support was indeed important. The Republican Revolution of 1994 cleared the way for House Speaker Newt Gingrich to lead a renewed attack on the NEA. Gingrich had called for the NEA to be eliminated completely, along with the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. While some in Congress attacked the funding of controversial artists, others argued the endowment was wasteful and elitist. However, despite massive budget cutbacks and the end of grants to individual artists, Gingrich ultimately failed in his push to eliminate the endowment. The NEA provides grants for high-quality humanitarian projects for cultural institutions such as museums, archives, libraries, colleges, universities, public television and radio stations, and to individual scholars. Now, the agency is also a base supporter of a network of private nonprofit affiliates. The 56 humanities councils in the United States, these grants are given in order to strengthen teaching and learning in the humanities in schools and colleges across the nation, as well as to facilitate research and original scholarship, provide opportunities for lifelong learning, as well as preserve and provide access to cultural and educational resources, and to strengthen the institutional base of the humanities. The endowment is directed by a chairman who is appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate for a term of 4 years. Advising the chairman is the National Council on the Humanities, a board of 26 distinguished private citizens who are also appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. The National Council members serve staggered 6-year terms. Americans for the Arts. Their mission statement is to serve, advance, and lead the network of organizations and individuals who cultivate, promote, sustain, and support the arts in America. Americans for the Arts was founded in 1960 and is the nation's leading nonprofit organization for advancing the arts and arts education. With offices in Washington, D.C. and New York City, they provide an array of programs that meet the needs of over 150,000 members and stakeholders. Now, what they do is provide the tools necessary to empower the people to make a difference in their communities. As the nation's leading advocate for the arts and arts education, they work to secure increased resources for the arts and arts education at the local, state, and federal level to influence public and private policy. The state entertainment tax credits are another resource. The state-by-state film and television economic contributions, which are according to the MPAA, or Motion Picture Association of America, the production and distribution of film and television programs is one of the nation's most valuable cultural and economic resources to the arts and to the industry, the country's economic well-being. Now, the industry is a major private sector employer across the nation with salaries above the national average. The industry is a nationwide network of tens of thousands of small businesses located in every state in the country. The industry is heavily reliant on vendors and other industries all over the country, as each year film and television production activities take place in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. Now, here's an example of some of the benefits in some of the states which are benefiting from tax credits. The MPAA is responsible in the state of Connecticut for 7,325 direct jobs, with a total of $691.3 million in wages in Connecticut, which includes over 2,200 jobs as a directly related to production. Many states are taking advantage of the tax credits. In fact, New York, of course, stands to benefit, or it has benefited significantly, with 91,608 direct jobs and $8.2 billion in wages from the entertainment industry, with over 49,000 of those jobs being directly related to production. As well as the Midwest, where Alabama, for example, has benefited with 3,529 direct jobs, or $134.9 million in wages in Alabama, and creating over 540 jobs directly related to production. And of course, California, it goes without saying, has benefited many times, although many states have had temporarily cut out the tax incentives. For example, California's benefited but with 149 direct jobs and $17 billion in wages, with over 129,000 jobs in production created in the last fiscal year. Now, arts support of other nations. At a time when America seems to be cutting back its arts funding, countries like Russia attempt to move forward with philanthropic efforts. In a recent post from Philanthropy News Digest, or PND, interest in philanthropy is growing among Russian billionaires. According to documentation by Bloomberg News, between January 2010 and December 2012, 15 Russian billionaires gave a total of $1.64 billion to philanthropic causes. 8 others declined to provide information to the news, however. But the 15 billionaires whose combined worth totals $151 billion, or about 8% of the Russian economy, gave about 1% of their aggregated fortunes to charitable causes over the 3-year period, and according to Bloomberg, donated 40% more on average in 2012 than they did in 2010. Now, however, Russia's charitable giving remains modest when compared with the philanthropy of people like Warren Buffett and Bill and Melinda Gates, who launched the Giving Pledge in 2010 to convince the world's wealthiest individuals and families to commit more than half of their wealth to charitable causes. In December 2012, a survey of the UK-based Charities Aid Foundation found charitable giving in Russia to be among the least developed in the world, placing it 127 out of 145th of the countries on the basis of its citizens' charitable contributions and commitment to volunteer work. Vladimir Potanin, who in February became the first Russian to sign the Giving Pledge, and who ranked 6th in contributions among the 15 billionaires on the Bloomberg list, is looking to change that. Potanin promises to put Russian philanthropy on the world stage by encouraging others, as will planned tax breaks for individuals and corporations. Challenging the challenges of the arts. Historically, artists have been systematically denied fair wages and access to basic services like health care and unemployment protections. As arts and labor have become a front and center topic today, it has become even more obvious that virtually none of the money that flows into major arts institutions, companies that distribute creative content, and art makers actually reaches the artists themselves. Now, artists on strike. Over the past couple of weeks, we've learned about the millions that arts executives are pulling in, and contract workers at the Smithsonian Institute went on strike. Prior to that, we saw striking workers at the Frice Art Fair, students fighting one of the country's oldest art and design schools over tuition, and the Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco grappling with labor disputes, lawsuits, and donor issues. Groups that aren't actually unions, like the Dramatists Guild and the Dancers Forum, have tried to put together union-like contracts, but without the ability to engage in collective bargaining, it's up to each artist to advocate for themselves, and the legal intricacies can be daunting. So these model contracts often end up serving as guidelines and strong suggestions, but are not actually legally binding or enforceable unless the artist initiates them themselves. Now, in the U.S., many of the largest arts-related associations, like the Americans for the Arts or the Theater Communications Group, end up focusing most of their resources and energies on institutions rather than individual artists. So, in the arts at least, there aren't many that are working in a serious way to improve employment conditions for individual artists. Certification and changing from within. Founded and led by artists, WAGE, Working Artists and the Greater Economy, has adopted a somewhat novel model. Rather than working from the outside in, they are proposing a certification program whereby willing visual artists and performing organizations would agree to abide by ethical payment practices, which amount to a custom artist fee and production support structure based on the budget and level of activity of each organization. Thereby, each party, the individual and the organization, are both benefiting, and a trust is established. Now, the model has similarities to the work of the Canadian group CARFAC, C-A-R-F-A-C, which managed to get minimum payments to visual artists whose work is being exhibited. It was written into copyright law in the 1980s. Going off the grid and alternative economics. Occupy Wall Street's Arts and Labor Working Group has, over the past 2 years, been engaging in serious questions about how to rethink and rebuild the contemporary relationship between art and labor. Ultimately, according to the OWS's principles of solidarity, they hope to imagine a new socio-political and economic alternative that offers greater possibilities of equality. And you wondered what the OWS was up to. So, Arts and Labor is committed to looking at alternatives to capitalism that don't always associate dollars with labor. Now, if you have insight and wish to engage in sustaining and redefining the value of the arts in America, do call in right now at 562-645-3551 or join our online forum for Google Hangout at Google Plus by searching for podcast Being Social, where I'm currently standing by to engage with you in discussion. And you can join us each Sunday, including next Sunday, August 25th at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time here in the States for episode 10 of Being Social, as we explore the topic of a history of powerful women in entertainment. We'll take a look at the history of women in entertainment and how far they've come. And of course, this broadcast will be recorded later in the week, in which you're free to subscribe and listen at YouTube or sign up for the company's newsletter at acclaimedtheatricals.com, where you'll be provided with seasonal programming updates. This is Gregory Mikell, your host and moderator, standing by to engage with you.